Rivana Shazon Deman Devare Sheban Giden Tempa Gibundi Kalo Givalana Meval Hadam Benam Jetemba Sanji Jumden Pejava Shaja Tubana Chasano Cheto Japsuchu Temba Jumden and Dishin Sheban Jashuma Yantaman Sobe Sanje Ribat Shazon Deman Devare Sheban Giden Tempa Gibundi Kalo Givalana Tadam Benam Jetemba Sanji Jumden Pejava Shaja Tubana Chasano Cheto Jasu Shevo Temba Jumden Dishin Sheban Jashuma Yantaman Ribada Shazun Demban Devare Sheban Jiden Temba Givun Deva Kamuju Lana Meba Hadam Menam Jedemba Sanji Jumden Debeja Shaja Tubala Shazela Shedo Jazu Sheo Kaze Ganyin Sovo Jedam Ze Sarjan Dena Komba Dubra Gane Jiden Dena George Son Teze Keva Jama Shaza Namda Gunga Jodo Susanwa Yishi Jazu Serge Rumbonja Chawan Jeden Gombo Johnny Jama Cha, Zeno Senjon Demba Chimen, Seldon Rawa Jama Cha, Zeno de Jena, Siva so much. Yame Kenjen Jama Cha, Zeno Gombo Tuji Jedemba, Tamje Kemen, Sonoman de Jazujian, Dijen Jama Cha, Zeno, Tabian de Jacoma, giving it. Chido Deno Jojo Washington Jama Cha, Zeno, Trina Trevor, Maba Tana. Shingia Tamba Yende de Gende Maya Cha Zemo de Bachia Mecha Jinga Pinson Range Sene Yosu de Tene Sanje Temba Karma Rima Jumasi Chubur Melala da Jeda Bon de Janum de Terata Sonum Dia Tamje Sema Quantum de Jinja Gada Nada Shiva La Jube Sibe Sonen Joan Jovare Show.
To the teacher, last one, full destroyer, completely perfected, fully awakened, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, no other world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, secure from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one, the one going beyond, the full destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfecting knowledge and good conduct, Surata, no other word, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one going beyond, the full destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfecting knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, no other word, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When O supreme among humans, you upon this earth, you placed out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I prostrate. With the pure body's form supremely pure, wisdom motion like golden mountain, flame that blazes in the 3 worlds. We know the best, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are not. Incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the Teacher having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean. To you, the one gone to dustness I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment,
the virtues which frees one from the world, the one path, sublime, pure reality, to the Dharma which pacifies and prostrate. Those who are liberated and most assured the path of liberation, the holy field qualified with realization, who are devoted to the moral precept, to you the sublime community intending virtue,
virtues. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions.
Perform
Perform
only
perfect virtuous actions.
Subdue
Your mind thoroughly.
This is the teaching of the Buddha. A
Star,
star,
mirage, flame of a lamp,
an illusion, drop of dew or bubble, a dream of flash of lightning, cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through this merit, may sentient beings attain rank of all see. Subdue the flow of force and be delivered from emotional suffering of aging, sickness, and death. Sanje Jana Soje Jana Ma Chaju Padu Dante Jabu Dagen Cheto Jebe Soma Dala Penche Sanje Juba Shua Sanje Jana Soje Jana Ma Chaju Padu Dante Jabu Dagen Cheto Jebe Sona Je Dala Penche Sanje Juba Shua Sanje Jana Soje Jana Ma Chaju Padu Dante Jabu Dagen Cheto Jebe Sona Je Dala Penche Sanje Juba Shua Sanje Jana Soje Jana Ma Chaju Padu Dante Jabu Dagenji Soje Sonanje, Rola Penji, Sanje, Drubaresho.
May go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha.
Through the merit I created by practicing giving and other perfections. May I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Through the merit I created by practicing giving and other perfections. May I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections. May I quickly attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Kete Pumba Daya Na, Jadan Chiva Jendo Juro Kete Pumba Namde Shen, Pumba Sinye Meba, Danya Yoba Mayana, Dagi Yoba Kana Yoba, Dada Dagi Shiva Jiran, Manzima Yanzimek, Manzima Yanzimek, Ten Yoba Mayande, Manzima Yanzimek, Kanga Tonga, Nanda Shirin Yata, Dada Dagi Yanzan, Yawan, Bakashi, Tizeben, the Jawa set, Dada Yuma Sevatara, Dada Yuma, Dada Juban. 동반이 제가 보죠. 나고 시장다 주죠. 다음에 제자 담바주 상견은 됐다. 다음에 매제제 저를 잡고도 senjeji lobezo majeba da magama chunye nyanga de sung tamje yangda ma yinni yangda me yangda me tene sanje je de mo shene sheme sheba no joba no de ma de mondo me de ta de me tene de ye kala de na kanjo ma tene reje de me tene shemo ma yeje de je chime sanje ji de gano de temba de sinjo ba de tenji ma de ta de cheba ma de ta ma de so sanje na ma shi 년대 남자 세변나 라산지 지신 템바메나 라도 지엔 다서 주요하다 버셰지 라도 제고 조제 뭐 관계에 동도 되죠 오면 놈들 되죠 손조 소방도 산제되나 차제 So we are on the page 83.
80.
Huh?
Was it 80? Second paragraph.
Right to this, how this is also the standpoint, the guide to the Bodhisattva.
Yeah, so that's in my books, page 83. So I think this whole discussions kind of trying to kind of trying to point out what the actual path means. What is the I think it's what is the actual path that can lead to kind of state of liberation or enlightenment, right? So, in different school of thought for, and the Theravadan traditions, Theravadan schools, like the Sautrantika School, and Vaibhasika School. So kind of there be so their understandings like Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths, the 16 attributes of the Four Noble Truths. So, about the 16 attributes of Four Noble Truths, the emptiness or the selflessness of persons, so always understood in the absence of self-sufficient I. And so they don't really kind of, agree or appreciate the kind of, absence of intrinsic existing of I. So absence of intrinsic existing of I, which means for the Sautrantika School or Vaibhasika School, even the, Mahayana school of thought, Mind-only school, middle way school, autonomous school. So the absence of intrinsic existing is kind of, so for their mind, for them is annihilism, right? So they rather not to go or agreeing that the things are absence of intrinsic existence. So, and then instead of that, and they kind of, the selflessness of the person is the understood as an absence of self-sufficient I. So absence of self-sufficient I means what they are negating the self is the self that is accepted and believed in non-Buddhist school. So non-Buddhist school, they talks about the Atma, which is independent and permanent, right? So by negating, the self, which is really kind of believed and accepted in the non-Buddhist school, and kind of that self, independent self, or independent and permanent self. So Vaibhasika School, Sautrantika School, even the Mind-only schools, this kind of self has to be negated, right? So this kind of self is logically is not possible. It's an independent, permanent I. So that's what they call it, absence of self-sufficient I, right? Self that exists by itself. Self-sufficient means, right? Self-sufficient I means I, which is kind of always exists by itself without depending on the body, without depending on the feeling, without depending on the kind of, mental discriminations, mental formations, and perceptions. Is it something that is single out the kind of the existing by by its own essence, by its own nature. So the 16 attributes also, the selfness is always they understood is the absence of self-sufficient I. So they never accept the absence of intrinsic existing of I. So which means the I is not permanent and independent. I cannot be, I or self or person is never exists independently permanent. Right? But the self or the person is also inherently exist. So the self or person should inherent with the five aggregates. And some of the Vaibhasika school says the collection of the five aggregates is the self. And some Vaibhasika school and Sautrantika school says, no, mental consciousness is the the illustration of the I or the person. So I always must be exist inherent with, right, within the five aggregates, and particularly mental consciousness. The mental consciousness, the continuum of the mental consciousness is is the illustration of the self person. Because when this continuity mental consciousness, when it comes from the previous life, goes to the next life. So that I or the self that is coming from the previous life and going to next life, so referring to the continuity of the mental consciousness, right? So this is why the self or person is inherent with continuity of the consciousness, right? So which they are all kind of agree that the self or I is inherently exist. So this is why the 16 attributes, among the 16 attributes, the selflessness is always known for them is a self-sufficient I, absence of self-sufficient I, not the intrinsic I, right? So here the discussion is, in that case, now here trying to find out, so what actual path can eliminate the seed of the afflictive emotions? So then the Mahayana, Chandrakirti, is saying that the path that the that can lead to liberation or can overcome the seed of the afflictive emotion is absence of intrinsic existing of I. The realization of the absence of self-sufficient I has, cannot really eliminate the seed of the afflictive emotion. Because when you see, if you think things exist inherently, and then there's this, if things exist inherently, the feeling exists inherently. Feeling pleasure and unpleasant, pleasant and unpleasant, and neutrals are all inherently exists. It exists by their own essence. So whenever there is the grasping at intrinsic nature, right? Whenever there is the grasping at the intrinsic nature of feeling, intrinsic nature of the physical, intrinsic nature of the self, intrinsic nature of the nation, intrinsic nature of so this the relations, there's always that lead to generate the fixation, attachment. Whenever there's a grasping at the intrinsic nature, automatically it generates, produce the attachment. So the absence of self-sufficient I can, right? When you realize that and you continuously meditate on that, you may gain direct realization of absence of self-sufficient I, but still it leads to open to generate the grasping of self, the grasping of feeling. So whenever there's a grasping of the pleasant and unpleasant, there's always attachment. So when there is attachment is the the fertilizer for the karmic seed for the rebirth. So the fertilizer is always there, and the karma is there. So there's like when there's a barley seed, there's the possibility of this sprout, right? When there's a tomato seed, there is always possible of giving rise to tomato. So you haven't really this realization of the absence of self-sufficient I never come to the to be able to eliminate the seed of the afflictive emotions, because this always leaves open for the grasping in the intrinsic nature of the phenomena. So this is why, and then and also saying yes, it has not not potential to eliminate the seed of the afflictive emotion, but it has the potential, or it has the quality that can you can generate the renunciations and great compassion. So you can also always develop this kind of thing, renunciations, and the renunciations renunciation compassions based on realization impermanence, realization of conditional suffering. So that's why it is much better than the non-Buddhist school way of finding the moksha. So non-Buddhist school, the way of finding the moksha is only the way to pursue the moksha of liberation is single-pointed meditation. So single-pointed meditation and kind of realization with 16 attributes with absence of self-sufficient I. So the 16 attributes with kind of absence of self-sufficient I has a higher quality than the single-pointed meditations. Yeah, kind of like that.
Geshela, can you explain those remark on the afflictions that were defined within two Abhidharma, but that is not what Chandrakirti is saying. Affliction also includes ignorance, grasping itself. Is also.
Yeah, I think that will come later.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it comes later. Yeah. So I think this is what I mentioned that before. In Abhidharma, in like lower school of thought, including my own schools, they all believe that the grasping of self, the misconceptions as the two kind of misconceptions. One delusional misconception, and one is misconception but not delusion. Right? And even some Vaibhasika school, they say they kind of they explain with example. They're saying that there's an ignorance not necessary to be the afflictive emotions. Ignorance not necessary to be delusion. So, and then why this is, during the Buddha, so there was one household man, very old, and he wanted to receive the monastic vows. He came to the in the monastery so he wanted to join in the monk. And then at that time the Buddha was not present, so the Shariputra and checked through his clairvoyance. This person has he any seed, right? Seed for the liberation or not? And Shariputra couldn't see that he has really developed any possible of gaining liberation in this life. So Shariputra reject him, say, I cannot see any possible of you attaining the liberation in this life. So you just go back. And he stayed there, even by rejected by the Shariputra, and he waited for the Buddha. So when the Buddha comes and he requests again, so Buddha says, of course, you can join monasteries. You can attain the liberation within this life. And the Buddha mentioned that in which and when he has implanted the seed for the liberations. So something that Buddha can see is no possible or those arhat, right? So the arhat couldn't see the seed of the liberation within this person, and Buddha can see. So this ignorance of the Shariputra is not delusional, is kind of the ability that he is lacking to see because of the time that's too far or times too long ago. And then one day there's Mongol Putra, and when his mother died, and he wanted to see through the meditations, he want to know that where he mother's has born. So Mongol Putra through the meditation couldn't see it. And then he asked Buddha, so where is my mother born? And Buddha mentioned the such the places. So Mongol Putra is also Arhat, Shariputra is Arhat, right? And so this is why the Vaibhasika School and Sautrantika School thinks ignorance not necessary to be a delusion. So even the Arhat has this kind of non-delusional ignorance, not being knowing, right? So and then in Mind-only school and in medieval autonomous school also agree, or they all says, yes, ignorance, there's the two kinds. One is a delusional, one is not delusional. So ignorance, which is delusional, is the grasping at self-sufficient I. Right? Grasping at the self-sufficient I is ignorance. And the grasping truly existing of phenomena are not the delusional ignorance. Is ignorance, but not delusional. Right? And then, the Chandrakirti argument is ignorance, the misconceptions are the kind of active, the manifest there's a you can divide the delusional in manifest active, the afflictive emotion, inactive affliction emotion. But you cannot say there's a delusional and non-delusional. So the misconception, the grasping of self-sufficient existing or inherent existing, the both are delusional. Is the misconceptions, therefore it is afflictive. I'm not sure the emotional is usually delusional. Right? Maybe it's not really fit the term, the afflictive emotion. Maybe not the emotion. Is a driving condition for the afflictive emotion. Right? But delusional is a delusional. The misconception always known as the delusional. So delusional can be active and inactive. So the Chandrakirti and Shantidevas, they all says, without this realization emptiness, without the knowledge of things lacking intrinsic existence, there is no way to overcome the seed of the afflictive emotions. So this is what this line a discussion there. And then, people always says, even the Buddha Shakyamuni and many of the sutra they mention, even the Mahayana Sutra, what makes individual continuously cycling samsara. And Buddha always says this, and Hinayana Sutra, Mahayana Sutra, they all says, because of not knowing the Four Noble Truths. So, because not knowing the 16 attributes of the Four Noble Truths, that kind of holds the sentient being and cycling in samsara.
This is in Sutra.
Yeah, even the sutras. So the Four Noble Truths, the 16 attributes of the Four Noble Truths, is the path, is the kind of the realization of the 16 attributes is the path to lead to the liberation. And why I would say, right, this even 16 attributes, kind of the understanding of the 16 attributes in a Sautrantika school and a Vaibhasika school and mind only school has no quality of the overcoming the seed of the afflictive emotions. So it's kind of, the like 16 attributes, the complete understanding, right? So not like the, how say, superficial understanding. So the 16 attributes, the selflessness, if you understand as a self-sufficient, not the intrinsic, right? So then you haven't really completely understand or totally understand the Four Noble Truths. Yeah. So this is so far explained. So now, how this is also the standpoint of guide to the Bodhisattvas, guide to the Bodhisattva way. So Shantideva also agree with Chandrakirti. So ignorance, misconceptions are all delusional, but active and inactive, right? And through kind of, the Abhidharma's Abhidharma school of 16 attributes can overcome temporarily the manifest afflictive emotions. Temporarily, they manifest afflictive emotions. So Abhidharma's 16 attributes cannot eliminate the seed of the afflictive emotions. So I think this is also the impermanence. Sautrantika School, impermanence means in Tibetan we call kejigma. Kejigma. Kejigma means the instant, one instant, right? Instantly existing or instant disintegrating. So things with instant is the kind of, the definition, the characteristic of the impermanence. So the Sautrantika school says things, every conditional phenomena, remain within the one instant. The next instant is cease to exist. Everything. So they think that, right, the impermanence means things exist only, right, in a time of instant. Everything, right? If there's remain or kind of the existing means one instant. Right? Next instant, they disintegrate. They disintegrate or disintegrate in the instant disintegrating. So the Sautrantika school, they think like, for example, minute kind of minute remain exist within the 60 seconds, but the second remain one instant. So next instant, the first second would cease to exist, or disintegrated. So minute is remain with 60 seconds, and after the 60-second, minute will disintegrate. So that's kind of, Sautrantika school. They understands a minute as impermanent. So the Prasangika school says, yeah, you can conceptually agree that minute is remain or exist for 60 seconds, but there's no way you can prove minute is existing within the seconds. So minute never can prove exists within the second. Not the first second, third second, fourth second, because minute is totally kind of, absence in each seconds. If hypothetically, if the minute exists with 60 seconds, and why not minute exist before the second has started? Why not minute can exist after the 60 seconds? Because minute exists with seconds, right, apart from each second. Because minute is not a second. Minute consists of 60 seconds. So if they consist of 60 seconds, something that consists of 60 seconds, it is exist within the second. It has to be exist, like this is like for example, minute kind of continuously remaining, but seconds are continuously disintegrating. Right. Like you see the clock, there's a two pen, right? Huh? Two hands, okay. So the second is continuously moving, but minute seems to remain. And it finished whole one round and minute tucks one move. So similarly, so minute has to stay with each second, but the seconds are disintegrating. Means like two hands are separate, so minute should be separate from the second. If minute could remain by itself apart from the second, why is not possible minute before the second has started? Minute is just waiting there. Can I come? Can I come? So right. So the Prasangika school says, yes, you are saying minute is remain for 60 seconds. This much I can agree. Yes, minute is remain for 60 seconds. But so it is impossible to proving that minute is existing within the second. Not the beginning of the second, not the end of the second, not during the second. So because the minute is conceptually the kind of projected, designated phenomena, right, based on the counting the 60 seconds. Because this whole measurement is done by the thought. So the Prasangika school, minute, their understanding of the minute as impermanent, and the Sautrantika school, understanding impermanence of minute is totally different. So there's some kind of intrinsic phenomena, right? So it's because of the minute, it will remain for 60 seconds. The 60th second, minute will die out, and another minute starts. So the Prasangika school said there is no really possible to see, kind of to so when you examine, so like in this way, you are yourself, and you say, I exist with my body, Wherever my body go, I go, right? Right? And I also, with my feeling, when the feeling change, I change with that. So kind of eye consciousness, I exist with eye consciousness, I exist with nose consciousness, tongue consciousness. So this is like is it like, what do you call, the shopkeeper and his merchandise. So shopkeeper stays with his merchandise, right? So that means they're different. So in this way, if you exist and like a, cow and cow's owner, if you exist separate from the body, separate from the feeling, so similarly, minute exists separate from the each seconds. So in that way, this kind of concept is very much similar in the non-Buddhist school Atma. So even the five aggregates, like even the body, kind of dissolve in the house, like all the elements dissolve finally in the space. So you still remain. So you say now, so I have no basis. I have to go. Right? You just exist outside of the body. Right? You just wait until body has totally kind of stopped functioning. So once the body has totally stopped functioning, then you say, now I have no home. I have to go and find another home. So that kind of concept is the Atma. Right? So you are also kind of, Sautrantika School, you also have a similar concept of the non-Buddhist school, like a minute that is separate from the second, but second also dying, and minute says, no, this is not my time now. So I'll just wait the 60th. So until there, I will just alive remain. Right. So in this way, the phenomena, so the Prasangic school and karma rarima metas, things, the process of the Bodhisattva a star, a mirage, a flame of lamps, a star, a mirage. So when this interpreted in the Sautrantika school, so they always says star, a mirage, flame of lamp, and illusions, a drop of dew, or bubbles. So and whatever they use the term, they always interpret it, right? Things like is a kind of is a deceptions to it is the conditional phenomena are deceptive because it seems it exists in every instant. Things do not exist, right? Things exist in one instant, next instant the things kind of cease to exist. So the illusion like the mirage like means the so that kind of the continuity of the phenomena, the things, conditioned phenomena remaining continuously means one thing's constantly happening again and again, right? Happening again and again or remaining continuously is mirage-like phenomena, a star, a flame of lamp, an illusion. This is what Sautrantika School says. But so if they go more detailed, this is minute remain with seconds, right, for 60 seconds. So the Prasangic School, it is unacceptable or not agreeable, because there is no such minute. Like, you exist with body, myself exists with feeling, myself exists with and the perceptions, the feeling, and discrimination awareness means. Does that mean there's many me, or some me exists with on the body, some me exists with feeling, some me exists my thought, or it is the one, right? It is the one that cover all the five aggregates. So the Vaibhasika School, there is no me, right? That kind of exists with body separately. There is no me exists with feeling separate from the feeling itself. So this is like, when there is a seeing, the seer exists. Right? Based on the seeing, the seer designated the seer is a designated phenomena designated based on active seeing. And seer is not exist different from the seeing. Seer is not exist prior to the seeing. Seer is not exist simultaneously with the seeing. Seer is not exist after the seeing. But when there is a seeing, conceptually, there is the seer. Right. So the whole discussions, the main point is without realization emptiness, without realization the absence of intrinsic existing of the phenomena, and there is no possible of overcoming the seed of the afflictive emotions. So Shantideva also the same, Chandrakirti. This standpoint is also mentioned by the great Bodhisattva Shantideva. His guide to the Bodhisattva way possess the following questions. It's through seeing the truth one is freed. What need is there then to see the emptiness? So in the guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life, I believe this is chapter 10 was, wisdom chapter. So he so this is his so opponents from the opponent sides. It's through seeing the truth, through the truths, one is freed. They're saying, if opponent says like that, if someone could free from the samsara, someone could free from samsara through the realization of the 16 attributes, and what is the need for the emptiness to free sentient being from samsara? Right? Emptiness means your emptiness, absence of intrinsic existence, is not necessary, because sentient beings could free from realization of this Four Noble Truths. So the question is arguing that one become the free from afflictions through the path, seeing the Four Noble Truths and their 16 characteristics, such as impermanence, the 16 attributes. Therefore, it is not necessary to see the emptiness in order to eliminate the afflictions. So this is similar from the lower school, even the minority school, they may say. So I don't think it's necessary that your understanding emptiness is required for overcoming the afflictive emotions, because even the Buddha says, through the Four Noble Truths, sentient being could free from samsara. So whole we all agree the 16 attributes, the Four Noble Truths, is the path to meditate that lead to the liberation of the cessation of afflictive emotions. So in that case, if this 16 attributes is enough for individual to free from the samsara, so why there is a, required the kind of realization of absence of intrinsic existence? The responding to such questions, Shantideva writes, for the scripture state that without this path, there is no awakening. So Shantideva says, if you see from the sutra, the 16 attributes is enough to free sentient beings, therefore there's no need the emptiness. Right? And I also see it in the scripture saying, without this wisdom, realization, emptiness, and there is no awakening. So there is no arhat. So if you're using the scripture to for the argument, so emptiness, no need, and I also bring the scriptures. This scripture also says like that. Shantideva states here that without this path of seeing the emptiness, intrinsic existence, there is no attaining any of three types of enlightenment. So, how this is stated in the scripture is explained by the great commentary on Guide to the Bodhisattva Way, which cites the mother perfection of the wisdom sutra, the speak of how there is no liberation for those who perceive real entity. The scripture also says that whoever has the perceive or conceive things that truly exist, things exist by their own entity, so there is no liberations. And how from the stream entry, Pratika Buddha, past, present, and future, all of these states are attained through the perfection of the wisdom alone. So taking the word awakening in the second line in the above quote, right? As some do, to refer only to the excellent awakening, the Buddha is not the meaning. So awakening, enlightenment. So in Tibetan we call Changchup. So sometimes it seems like Buddhahood or enlightenment. So Changchup. So the Arhat, Pratika Buddha Arhat, and Sharvaka Arhat, and the Buddha. So they all attained the enlightenment. So here, if Changchup interpreted in enlightenment, so they're all enlightened, right? So now, and if all are enlightened, so why Buddha is sublime than the other arhats. So Changchup Chenpo, the great enlightenment and enlightenment. Changchup and the Changchup Chenpo. So Changchup means Changwa means purified. So one who has overcome even the seed of the afflictive emotions, so purified even the seed of the afflictive emotions, is Changchu, right? Is enlightened, right? And then Buddha here, this how is that? Changchu Chenpo, the great enlightenment, is not only overcome the seed of the afflictive emotion, even the stain of the afflictive emotions, right? The omniscient is not just free from the afflictive emotion. Omniscient means free from even the stain of the afflictive emotions. So the stain of the afflictive emotion and the afflictive emotions, one is the obscuration for the liberation, one is obscuration for the knowledge. Right? So Buddha is all known, means there is no even stain of afflictive emotions. Therefore, Buddha is omniscient. Right? So this, I think, when you read the story in the Vinaya text, there's always some kind of discussion. Tathagat, Buddha, how say, Tathagat and Buddha. So it seems the whole arhats, you still can call them a Buddha, right? But the kind of, the Buddha name is occupied by the Shakyamuni Buddha because he is the one who, how say, through the Buddha's teaching, and everyone can attain the enlightenment or arhat. So arhat, translated in Tibetan, Dajola, and that translated in English, the four destroyer. So arhat means the four destroyer, and Changju means, I don't know, English so far we can use the enlightenment, right? So the great enlightenment in enlightenment. So yeah, in the sutra this is three. So without the realization emptiness, there is no three kind of enlightenment. The four lines, the beginning lines are true. Yeah. And also, then the four lines beginning, since the true monk is the root of the Dharma, also present how the path that involves mind infected by the objectifications through the grasping at the true existing cannot lead to attainment of nirvana. So tenza geloni kawarnes. Yeah, and the guide to the Bodhisattva says, Tembe tsawam, the root of the Dharma. So sometimes not really fully translations, it's because the, as a culturally interpreted, is not possible to put in the language of word. So, and this we call Sangye Temba, right? So Dharma here, Dharma, the root of the Dharma. What makes Dharma remain in this world? As long as there are the root of the Dharma, means who holds the Dharma, right? Who experience the Dharma, who actualize the Dharma, as long as then that is the way to continue Dharma, right? Pervade continuous Dharma, the benefiting to the people. So what are those people? Who are those people who really hold the Dharma through their own direct experience, and then arhats? So these are the root of the Dharma. Yeah. So also present how the path involves the mind-infected objectification through the grasping true existence. So if the arhats only kind of arhat has not really arhats, they don't they don't have realized the emptiness, then how can those arhat become the root of the dharma? So I think this tells again in us the root, why they say since the true monk is the root of the dharma. Tells again So it seems like there, as long as dharmas that continues to benefiting the people, because of there are in this world or in this planet, so there are people who directly experience the dharma, which means if someone is whole with the dharma, is never experienced, never actualized, never realized, never understood by anyone, then so this scripture is no longer dharma, it's no longer benefiting. Right. So this dharma continues to benefit as long as there are people who has experiencing, right, who is experiencing the kind of dharma.
The true monk means the one who experienced this dharma.
Yes. So the root of the true monks are the root means who are those monks, right? Who are those monks? So then there's the arhats. Arhats are the monk. They continuously experience this dharma, right? So therefore, that through their blessing, through their kind of influence, and people, receives the benefit. People get the benefit from following the dharma. So I think this is like Buddha in the prophecy, where it says his dharma will remain in this earth 5,000 years. So which means after 5,000 years, and people forget, people no longer is experiencing, meditating, right, contemplating. So yeah, but you can find a lot of books, very expensive book, fancy books in the computer, but these never can help people to kind of never benefit. There's a Gemonian, yeah, it's the root, yeah. The true monks is the root of the dharmas, also present how the path that involves the mind infected the grasp objectifications through the grasping of true existence cannot lead to attainment of nirvana. So then the root of the monk is not possible because they all arhat. According to the Abhidharma, all the arhat hasn't really realized the absence of intrinsic existence. So, next, the one reads the if one is free through the elimination of the afflictions, then it should happen immediately afterward. It should happen immediately afterward. Tematadu terjurus. So now this is kind of like the Shantideva was saying that if you think that your the understanding of the 16 attributes, which is without the absence of intrinsic existence, without knowledge, absent intrinsic existence. So the 16 attributes with the absence of self-sufficient can overcome or can stop, right, the manifest afflictive emotion for temporarily. And according to you, you're meditating on the 16 attributes of the Four Noble Truths. Through that way, you can, when you have to overcome the manifest afflictive emotions, right after that, subsequently, that person should be free from samsara. Right? So, which is still not the case. So, means you have overcome manifest afflictive emotions. You haven't rooted out the afflictive emotions. Right? So here the line, one is freed through the afflictive emotions, elimination of the afflictions, present the opponent's positions. The meaning of this line should be explained in the same sense as the line, through the seeing the truth, one is free, in terms of the, how's that, query? Yeah. If one becomes free from the afflictions through the path of seeing the Four Noble Truths and their 16 characteristics, such as impermanence. This is because the context here is about whether freedom from affliction can be attained through the path of 16 characteristics, such as impermanence alone. That this is so is clear. This is so. What's that? That this is so is clear. Also from the argument in the line, it's through the seeing the truths. I think this is the same. One is from the beginning said, is through the seeing the truths. One is free. What is need there than to see the emptiness? And here it says, one is free through the afflictions of, one is free from the elimination of the afflictions. Then it should be happen immediately afterwards. Subsequently, if you overcome manifest afflictive emotions, then you have to become the arhat. So like this is not the case, because non-Buddhist school, through the single-pointed meditations, the highest of the mundane concentrations they gain. So while the kind of the peak of the existing of the concentrations, the formless of the concentrations, and they they kind of they gain some kind of confidence, or they think that, oh, now I have no afflictive emotion at all. So when the coming out from the meditation, when they are not meditating, they think that, oh, there's the afflictive emotion still coming. So some they abandoned, or some they kind of abandoned believing in the liberations. Because there's, so all this year I meditate, I have gained the highest concentrations. And also I feel like I'm free from afflictive emotions. When I stop meditation, and there's the afflictive emotions coming. So is total elimination of afflictive emotion is a false, is not true. So they abandon the liberation. Right? So in this way, through the 16 attributes without realization emptiness, when you overcome, when you kind of pacify those manifest afflictive emotions, and then right after, and that person should be arhat, but that's not the case. So in view of above, it is definitely incorrect to explain this line as an approach whereby, while accepting that afflictions can be eliminated through the path of 16 characteristics, such as impermanence alone, one still maintained that this path cannot bring freedom from all the suffering. The correct meaning intended here is this: when those afflictions define a common with to Chandrakirti School, right, and Vaibhasika and Sautrantika School, temporarily cease to manifest for some practitioners because they generate the path of Four Noble Truths and the 16 characteristics described above. If this were to truly constitute freedom from the afflictions, then such persons should attain total cessation of all contaminations immediately after such temporary elimination of the manifest afflictions. Such is not the case. However, this is how the opponent's position is refuted here, that such consequences cannot be accepted is explained in the following. So it's kind of repeating. Though they possess no afflictions, one sees in them potency of karma. Now this is the one of the and the guide to the Bodhisattva's line. It says, though they possess no afflictions, but one sees in them a potency of karma. So it's like temporarily you have kind of stopped the manifest afflictive emotions, but still you haven't ruled out the afflictive emotions. That karma can play again to propel you in the next life. So there's a karma is still kind of holding the role. Although such practitioners possess no manifest afflictions because of their karma potential to propel the future rebirth, can still be discerned. So thus this line from the Guide to the Bodhisattvas should be explained in the above way. Some Indian commentaries as well as some Tibetan interpret these lines as follow. Although the Mongol Putra, Mongoliana, the Arya Angulimala, and the like do not possess afflictions, one can see in them the result of karma accumulated by the causing suffering when they were ordinary beings, and thus they do not attain the freedom immediately. So this interpretation is incorrect. So Lama Tsongkapha was saying, yeah, some Indian, and they always use this kind of line, Guide to the Bodhisattvas, when they explain or can explain this line. So they kind of, talks about Mongoliana and Angulimala. So Lama Tsongkapha says this line is this line is explaining directly saying overcoming the manifest afflictive emotions is not going to stop for the rebirth, right? So manifest afflictive emotions temporarily shutting down is not the not the ending of the second existence. The karma will play again with so this some of the Indian masters and Tibetans this line when they come to explaining and they use Mugulayana and Angulimala. So Mugulayana is Mugulayana, so Arhat, attained Arhat, but and out of karma, the karmic, the karmic force that is accumulated before they attain the Arhat. So while there are Mugulayana already attained the Arhat, he experienced the suffering, which the suffering that caused by the karma that is committed or accumulated as an ordinary being. So Mugulayana, this line is saying overcoming afflictive emotion temporarily is not going to stop the rebirth. Means Mugulayana is not going to rebirth in samsara because he is arhat. But within this life, he experienced the consequences of negative karma, right? And the Angulimala, so he has killed so many people, right? But he has attained the arhat within this life. So he is not going to reborn again in samsara. But within this life, he experienced a tremendous suffering, right? So this line doesn't fit with these two, Mugulayana and Angulimala. So Lama Tsongkapha says, Nyomon Medyas, Tedala legend of Toanins. So this has always misinterpreted, even in India, in Tibetans. Mongoliana, there are many arhats, so they still kind of have to face the consequences of negative karma that accumulated in the past. So I think Pagpa Bharatas, Arya Bharatas, and he was killed when he's returned to his home. So he was before, maybe I'm not sure what age he has joined the monastery, but still not sure. Because when he was living in the town, and he's kind of prince, and there are many brothers. They fight for throne. So the Bharadanja left the town and went to the Buddha and received the teaching, and he attained Arhat. So when he decided to go back to his home, and those people think that he's coming back for fight for his throne, so they sent the army and killed him. So before, when he left from the Buddha, and Buddha says, face the consequences, right? So, but he can avoid that because he is arhat. He can do the miracle things, and he can. But this is reminding you have to face the consequences. This is the karma you have accumulated in the past. Just end this karma. So when you go back, and there are people waiting, and those in Angulimala, and some monk, there's some people ask Angulimala. So after that, he gained noble wisdom, and how do you every day? How do you live? And some people think that he has killed so many people, so how he must have some kind of regret, and he's very unhappy. And Angulimala says, I'm quite. My mind is quite free, but I have keen pain in my, from the, in the center of my body to there. It's like there's a kind of, the iron, the stick in my head, but my mind is quite free. The pain is tremendous pain there. So he's still kind of, experiencing the consequences. The pain is not, is not really kind of obscure his meditation and his knowledge. Is not, even the pain is tremendous, but it cannot overpower on his wisdom. So that kind of, so that's the Angulimala, and the Mongoliana is also like that. Sometimes like Shariputra and Mongoliana, Shariputra is very eloquent speaker, and he very soft and very intelligent. So Mongoliana is also Arhat, but the way he speaks is very kind of rough. So there's some kind of, there's so many influence from the parents, culture, and so habits stick with you, although you have very fine knowledge, but still there. So Mongoliana, one time he got beat up by the because he always kind of, in the discussions, and because he's very intelligent. So every time he defeat, he said, "You're very stupid. You're dumb." So this really hurt many masters and their followers as very, very angry. So Mongoliana, you're stupid, you're dumb. So they wait for him. And then he got so so this line, though they possess no afflictions, one sees in them the potency of karma, means kind of through the meditations, through the contemplation of the 16 attributes, you may come to overcome or kind of pacify the manifest afflictive emotions, but it's still there's a karmic potency. There is a sign of propelling for the next life, which means you haven't overcome the seed of the afflictive emotions. So potency to produce the suffering within the lifetime is not the issue. It is the potency of karma to propel the future rebirth. There is no true freedom if this has not ceased. So this is how the text should be explained. Again, one reads, like the meditative attainment with no perceptions. And the mind divorced from the emptiness through those ceased will arise again. So this is the attainment of non-perceptions, means this is the mundane, the finest, the concentration, no perceptions. Meditative attainment. So in Tibetan, the term that we use, dushe mebe nyumju. Nyum means the nyomba means equal. Juba means engage. By engaging, right, through the meditation, through the concentration, and equalize the kind of like balancing the mind, right? That what is that kind of the finest, the concentration of the mundane, and this is the formless, the final formless concentrations. Why this is called no perceptions. So these meditators, they find the discrimination awareness, or the kind of as the perception is they think the perception itself is the condition for generating afflictive emotions. So like, this is good, this is bad, or this is wonderful, this is worse. So the perception itself is the condition that giving rise to the afflictive emotions. So they try to find no perceptions. So the final formless thing, their concentration is no perceptions. So so there's a namkathaye, the final, the formless concentrations. First name is namkathaye, kind of like limitless sky. So kind of, and then namshithaye, the limitless like consciousness, right? And then this is GMS, right? GMS means nothing exists, so nothingness. And again, they think nothingness is the perceptions. It is again a condition for developing the afflictive emotions. Then there's no perceptions, right? First, namkathayan, like sky, limitless like a sky. So they perceive the phenomena like a sky, a space, right? Is kind of, a space-like phenomena. The second is consciousness, like just mere experience, nothing but experience. And then third is kind of space-like, consciousness-like, still the perceptions. So there is always chances to developing afflictive emotions. And then there goes nothing. So nothing really exists, or no exists, or kind of try not to see anything. So there's still things, nothing is perceptions, is the discriminations. So then no perceptions, the meditator of that. So most finest, the mundane concentration is no perceptions. So no perception is just not perceiving anything, but you cannot just stop mind to perceive. You cannot stop mind functioning. Right? There is no any antidote to stop kind of function of the mind. So even the formless, most settled concentration, single pointed meditation, no perceptions, is not being able to overcome any kind of afflictive emotions. If you come out of meditation, you start perceiving things, you see things, you feel things, right? Then that is the kind of, become the condition to, developing the attachment. And so here, this, like the meditative attainment with no perceptions, the mind divorces from the emptiness. So any kind of meditation or non-meditations, right? Compassion or anger. So anything, so compassion or anger, because it is divorced from the realization emptiness. So any perceptions, any mind, any meditations which which lacks the understanding or absence of intrinsic existence, has no quality of overcoming afflictive emotions. So this is like no perceptions, and again you come out from meditations and then generate, you gain perceptions, and then all the afflictive emotions kind of reappears again. So those seeds that all arises again. If one is divorced from the realization of emptiness, the mind ridden with afflictions may have ceased for a while through the practicing other path, but as they have not been permanently turned away, the afflictions will resurface in the manifest manner. As such, this kind of circling in the cycle existence under the power of karma would persist. The statement that there is temporary stoppage of the afflicted mind is to be understood as explained above, as a temporary elimination of the manifest afflictions. Now, to present the opponent's response to the line, one see in them the potency of karma. The text reads, if one assert, it is certain that they have no craving that lead to appropriations. If one assert, it is certain they have no craving that lead to appropriations. So I think the arhat, the liberations, enlightenment, or the arhat means the four destroyer means you have destroyed the craving, right? You have destroyed the craving. You have destroyed the attachment, the seed of the attachment. So then there is a possible of stopping the rebirth in the second existence. Since by that path, the craving that appropriates future rebirth is brought to an end, it is certain that they do not take future birth under the power of karma. In response to this, Shantidevas writes, through this craving may be unafflicted, might it yet exist like ignorance. So the responding, the others, the opponent, they saying, so arhat, liberation is kind of defines through path that has overcome or free the mind from the craving. So the free the mind from the craving is defined to be freedom from the attachment, freedom from the samsara. So the kind of freeing mind from the attachment of the craving can be done through meditating on the 16 attributes of the Four Noble Truths. So then Shantideva says, maybe so what you have known as attachment, there's another attachment that you haven't really known or kind as attachment. So maybe why not? So as you know that ignorance, you deluded ignorance and non-deluded ignorance. So for you, maybe there's attachment as deluded and non-deluded attachment. Because one attachment that is, so one attachment that generates through the grasping intrinsic existence. One attachment is the only generate through the grasping self-sufficient I. So you may be able to overcome the attachment which is kind of driven through the grasping self-sufficient I. You still haven't overcome the attachment that is generated through the grasping at the intrinsic existence. So as you divided ignorance, deluded, non-deluded, you should also think the attachment, there's a deluded and undiluted attachment. So this is what Shantideva was saying. So Shantideva's response here is this: just our opponents accept there to be two types of ignorance. One that is afflictions in the sense defined in Abhidharma, and other type that is not. So Abhidharma hasn't really I mentioned or thought about the attachment through the grasping at intrinsic existence. So Abhidharma always known attachment is through the grasping self-sufficient I, right? So the suggestion here is that there is a form of craving that is not afflictions in the sense commonly assented to both by two Chandrakirti School and by the Mahayana. So Vaibhasika School and Sautrantika School, their understanding of 16 attributes, and the Mahayana, and particularly Prasangika School, their understanding of 16 attributes of the Four Noble Truths. So I think there's a different understanding. This does not mean, however, that such craving is not accepted to be an afflictions in the Shantideva's own traditions. Therefore, the meaning is this: such being may have temporarily eliminate the manifest craving brought about by the grasping at self person as a self-sufficient substantial reality, but they have still possessed the craving brought about by the identity view, the grasping at the person as existing by their own, by way of its own essence. Thus, for those who have eliminated the manifest level in the manner described above, when it comes to this latter identity, we in craving, even their manifest level persist. Now, insofar as when the manifest afflictions are eliminated, the root of the afflictions persist. It is the same for both of these two traditions, Abhidharma and Chandrakirti. If no difference were found between the two systems as to present the absence of manifest level, it would be pointless to distinguish the different type of craving. And then, and then Shantideva also says, craving is a condition by the feeling. The feeling is present in them too. So the grasping at the feeling as intrinsic existence, or pleasant exists by their own essence, or unpleasant exists by their own essence. So it is the kind of condition that generates the attachment. That this line explains why craving will not come to end for one who has eliminated the manifest afflictions on the basis of other path. Without the view of realizing suchness, he will not eliminate the ignorance grasping at the true existing of feeling, not even to a small degree. In that case, when the pleasurable feeling has arisen in him, why would craving in the form of longing not to separate from it, not arises in him. And when the unpleasant feeling has arisen, why with craving not longs to be separate from it, not arises in for him. So for it is certain that effect will ensue from the cause when all the favorable conditions have gathered and there are no obstacles. The way we explained how craving in the relation to feeling is brought to an end is a present guide to the Bodhisattva ways. When there is no one who feels, not any feelings, when there is no one who feels, like a seer and seeing are both not truly exist, right? The seer is a kind of conceptually constructed phenomena based on the seeing that also conceptually constructed. The both are fabricated by the by the conceptual, by the language, by the term. So if you understand this, one who feels and the feeling are both, and the seer and the seeing not intrinsically exist. At that point, given these situations, why would craving not come to an end? So so this line explains how when one habitually sees that nothing, neither the one who feels nor the feeling themselves has intrinsic existence, craving will come to an end. This line also indicates that if one lacks such path, wisdom realizing emptiness, there is no reason why all craving would come to an end. The same meaning is conveyed in the 60 stanzas of the reasoning, so Nagarjuna's. So in those whose mind possess the logos, why would the grave poisons of the afflictions not arises? So this is also kind of, in the sutra, Bodhisattva sutras, so this is a kind of, Theravada traditions, kind of sutra. Yeah, it says, once the mind, right, sees any objectivities, right, when mind with objectifications, right, mind with objectifications. So nature said, why not this poison of afflictions is arise, right? Why not? And then says, for example, the person, right, who is not doing any, the person who is not really, committing negative karma, right? Negative karma, for example, ordinary person who live very simple life, just kind of, picking up the flowers, making garland, and selling it, and every day just living from this. And they are not really killing people, they are not criticizing other people, but simply picking up the flowers, making garland, and sell it, and then cook and sleep. So even those people, right, they are not really in the politicians, not in the fighting, but sometimes you see, even when you kind of making the garland, so some kind of thought comes, and then they get kind of, fixated on it, and they get angry, upset, emotional. So why this is happening? So this whole sign, right, is not because of the enemy, not because of their how say their life is kind of doing any wrong thing. It's simply the pop-up, the concept, and the fixed state. So these are whole sign of the objectivities, the manifest, and grasping it. So that these two, objectivity and the grasping at objectification, that conditions the fixation. So this is what Buddha says. Even the simple life living, they may generate, right, in the fixations. Out of that, angers, it may triggers the many negative karma. So they may go to the next life in hell realm. With this life, they're just making the garments. Right. So this whole indicates the grasping at any objectivity is the afflictive emotion. This is the root that holds, right, all the anger and attachments are just kind of, So nature simply then So with this sutra, Nagarjuna 60 strings, he kind of put in two lines. In those who mind possess a locus, nature, so translated in locus. I don't know how English speaker would understand locus. So locus means that there is some kind of the concept that could land on objectivity, right? So any concept that could land on, right, is land on objectivities. So that means the objectively groundable phenomena, perceiving it, conceiving it, the grasping it, and that lead to attachment and craving. Right. So for following the Lord, you don't need knife, you don't need gun, right? So it's kind of easily, simply like singing a song in the room, you may get angry. So, so this kind of whole, it's kind of referring or implying that. So the craving is cannot be stopped or cannot be eliminated unless, right, you have generated the absence of intrinsic exists. Nothing objectively exists. Nothing objectively groundable. So that is the only way to overcome the craving. So yeah.
Geshela,
Yeah.
can you explain what is a locus?
Locus is the ground, right? Locus is the ground. Common locus means something, two things can meet in one ground, one focus. So here is what in those who mind possess a locus means mind that sees any kind of phenomena that is objectively groundable, right? Like for example, if you see the minute is objectively groundable within the second, so that is for the Prasangic school. This is the grasping itself. So for the Sautrantika school, minor school, minute objectively groundable within the second is not a misconception. Right. Minute existing with each seconds is, for the Prasangic school, this is misconception. This is the grasping of self, person, self phenomena. So that for the mind-only school, the Sautrantika school, This is not even a misconception, because this is not really mistaken, because they think minute is inherently exists with seconds. So minute is the consist of the 60 seconds. It's supposed to sit and exist with 60 seconds. So the Prasangika school, like for example, if I exist with my body, I exist within my feeling, I exist within my perception, each perception. Prasangika school, this is a misconception. You can say, I exist independent on body, so therefore I can be tall, short, big, thin, right? I exist. So independent upon body, so therefore I can be, right, physically tall, short, like. So I exist independent on my feeling, so therefore I can be sad, I can be disappointed, I can be happy, enjoy, excited. So the existing of me is kind of how the conceptual construct myself. So how the conceptual construct myself as a tall, short means I definitely, that is depending on the body. But I, that a designated I, short, tall, is never exists within the skin, never exists within the meat, never exists within the breath, never exists within the heat. So Prasangika school says, then what do you mean by existing? There is no locus, there is no ground that you can find you exist. So the Prasangika school, the existing means arising. Arising means I kind of constructed entity, right? So, which means again, existing means something that could knowable. Knowable is the existing, right? Knowable does not mean that exists somewhere in particular kind of locus or particular basis. Like you know the nations, you know the government, you know a forest as a singular, but this is not objectively groundable. A forest as a singular, that singularity of the forest, how can this be found in which tree? Right? So it's not objectively groundable, but it is known by the mind, but depending upon the collection of the trees. The nation is also known by the thought, known by the mind, but depending on the people. So that's why nations, the concept of nation changes all the time. Sometime, right, with color, sometime with passport, sometime with border, sometime with the clothings, cultures. So nation never exists objectively groundable. It's just simply accepted as existing by the mind. So like a government, government also it just publicly accept and exist, right? So other than that, it's not really objectively groundable. So government, and where is the government? The government, and then a forest as a singular, and then the nations, and then the relations of the barley seed and sprout, and the relation of yourself and your previous life, the relation of you and your next life. So these are just never being objectively groundable. It's just simply accepted as an object. It exists, but it has a basis for mind to accept as existing. So can you really objectively prove your relation with the next life? To relate to relations, two things have to happen. So two things, you in this life and next life, never being simultaneously related. So the relation that you and this life and next life is never objectively groundable. So when this life happens, next life not exist. When next life happens, this life is cease to exist. But relation means there are these two are related. It's the two. So when was it two? When can it be two? Right? Is the next life is a two, or this life? This life is one. Next life is one. So there is no two. But the relation need the two things. So it's a conceptually. So the locus here, in those whose mind possess a locus, means whose mind sees any object that is objectively groundable, right? Why would the great poison of afflictions not arises? Means it is for sure it will arise. So in the sutra also mentioned that simple lifestyle, we're living a very simple life, just making making the garland of flowers. So they also sometimes they see something in their mind, and then they get attached or fixated, or in a very detached, right? So that, right, it's not because of their physical any kind of. I think there's no need any physical aggressions, but simply in the mind, just sitting in their house, sitting in their field, right? So mind creates some kind of image and projections, and then fixate on that. That fixations is kind of going to be triggers the karma, negative karma, and then that propel karma, the karma that can propel the consciousness next to the next life as a hell realm or lower realms. So like sometimes you're sitting in the couch very comfortably and happy, right? And watching televisions, and suddenly some image comes in your mind, and heavy breathings. You start breathing heavily. So why this is why? You are physically not moving, right? So the grasping at any mental construct and grasping is the sign, or it is the beginning, or is the starting of fixation. So the liberation means overcoming that craving. So the Chandrakirti and the Shantidevas arguing, their argument is the 16 attributes of your understanding, right, is not going to help you to overcome the craving. The craving arises in objectivities. The 16 attributes, your meditation, your analytical meditation, is not going to help you to root out the misconceptions. Okay, so I'll stop here maybe. I thought I can read more. Any questions? After that means so those in Tibetan, Lama Tsongkapha is appointing those great masters, translators in early time. So somehow they are very, when they read the guide to the Bodhisattvas, they reject, they even kind of, write the refutations. But Chandik, there was idea, Santi, there was understanding. So I can feel. So the Tibetan people easily get arrogant. So small knowledge just pop up. So they even deny the Shantideva's writings.
You made a distinction between ignorance and misconception, saying that they were both delusional. And you mentioned that some are active and inactive. What can you explain more about?
Vaibhasika School, the misconceptions, here the ignorance of the misconceptions. According to scripture, the ignorance is the root of the afflictive emotions. So that ignorance means actively grasping at phenomena, objectivities. So actively grasping at the phenomena as objective with objectifications. So the Vaibhasika School says that is the delusion. But I'm not sure that we can really say with emotional, which is not it's not really emotional, right? It's a delusional. It's afflictions, it's not afflictive emotion. So seeing phenomena with objectivity is the ignorance, is the misconceptions, is the delusional. So the delusional, again, delusion, some are active, some are inactive. Some are manifest, some is not really not manifest. So manifest means the delusional with object and aspect is called the manifest delusional. So when there's a delusional with no object, no aspect, is the so Palanians, it's kind of like inactive, maybe even inactive or embedded, the delusional, right? So why it is important to divide the deluded, active and inactive. So because some practitioners through the single pointed meditations, they're all kind of trying to seeking for end of delusion. Through the single pointed meditations, when they come to the final of the concentrations, they feel like, oh, maybe I have overcome all the afflictive emotions. I have no delusions. So when this kind of when they live with that kind of meditations longer, and they also see the sign delusions coming back, right? So that means they have overcome or temporarily kind of shutting down the manifest afflictive emotions. So they haven't really rooted out the afflictive emotions. So, so this is why there's the only way to overcome the afflictive emotions or the root out the afflictive emotions is because the seeing every phenomena as a totally absence in intrinsic existence. Every phenomena lacks the intrinsic existence. So which means everything is relatively exist, but right, nothing exists by their own.
Explain the unmanifested or non-manifested affliction. How is there like an example?
The delusion with aspect and object,
That's manifest.
yeah, that's the manifest. Something there's object to see, that is manifest. But the delusions, but there, but not really have any object to engage. So right.
Are we able to aware it's there? We can't.
We can see because when you, for example, when you are happy, when you're satisfied, right, and you seem like I have no anger at all, right. So then, right, in another conditions, right, some says things about, and then the anger is coming back, which means anger hasn't really not there. Anger is hidden and subconsciously. So it's not hasn't get rid of it, right? So this is called not manifest and manifest, active and inactive. Because these are very kind of, it's like, attachment. If you're happy, you're happy and enjoying with some kind of pleasurable experience. So that happy and enjoying and pleasurable experience, because this mind is also holds the kind of seed of the anger, jealous, because this mind is a kind of experience some kind of joy with the intrinsic phenomena. So satisfying, I have done something or I have got something, right? There's always me. Without me, you cannot be happy. So I did that. I have done that. I have got this. I'm going to do that, right? So there's always the kind of grasping of the self is there. So pleasurable, unpleasurable, at the time you perceive the self, right, in objectifications, with objectifications, objectively existing. So that's I that is always objectively groundable with your pleasant and unpleasant. So this how say, the seeing objectivity is with that in any kind of happiness, happy kind of the pleasurable experience is also hold the seed of detachment, anger, because that's the main reason that you can be angry, right? So that is the only reason. This is also the reason that you can get jealous, because your mind sees most precious myself in there. So if most precious myself when you find this is too small, you are not happy. So most precious yourself in their pleasurable experience, they see that because maybe you got computer, iPhone or something, right? So you find yourself happy with that iPhone, right? So why you are happy? Me receive this, me in there. And you see your friend, and bigger IMAX, so you find uncomfortable because I'm too small now, right? So the precious me is become too kind of smaller, so you don't want to see that. You precious me, always be perfect, comfortable, right? So you want to see, because your friend not letting you see yourself, precious me is not either it's too small or it's too small or too kind of so yet kind of so the pleasurable experience with myself. So that's why in the sutra, Mahayana sutras, and there's a many question and answer back and forth with the Buddha and the Bodhisattvas. And so every time people ask why sentient beings continuously cycle in samsara, because not knowing the Four Noble Truths properly or completely. And what makes sentient being free from cyclic existence? Again, Buddha says, because of complete understanding of the 16 attributes of the Four Noble Truths. And Mahayana, one of the sutras says, why the grasping of self, why the grasping intrinsic self is the obstacle for mind to free. Because this is, with this grasping and through the practice of the 16 attributes, you may this grasping of self may find, oh, now I am arhat, I am liberated. They are not. So if there's this kind of mind is happening, is the sign when you're not being liberated. So this kind of, there's the objectivity, any kind of objectivity is not letting you go with attachment. So here the objectivity is is not really, we are trying to create absence of objectivity. So when things always exist in the absence of objectivities, because things always exist dependently, relatively. Right? Emptiness is not emptying, right? Intrinsic existing, but things are their own and the absence in intrinsic existence. Emptiness is not empty. Things are emptied with intrinsic existence. So when we understand the selflessness, the lower school of thought, Sautrantika and the minor school, they are understanding impermanence, even the conditional sufferings. So they are understanding conditional suffering as objectivity. Vaibhasika school, understanding conditional suffering is also kind of absence of objectivities. Nothing independent, nothing intrinsically exists. But conditional suffering is a conventionally. impermanence also conventionally, right? So minute, hour, day, week, month is also always, right? These are measurement is done by the concept, not objectively exist. So that's what conventionally constructed. Right. So the Sautrantika School, the Mind-only School, and the Vaibhasika School, they think minute is intrinsically exist, hour intrinsically exist. So because of that, if the hour, minute, days intrinsically exist, so kind of, the past, for example, this is yesterday, right? Yesterday, when it born, when it exists, when it being present, right? It is intrinsic existing. Therefore, today is non-existing. So the past of yesterday is non-existing because one intrinsic thing has ceased to exist. So for them, the past, the future is non-exist. So the Prasangika school says the past of yesterday is not a non-exist. It exists with today. The past of yesterday makes exist by today. So from today makes existing of tomorrow. So that's why 3 times exists. You can see the 3 times. Right? So if intrinsic, so when things cease to exist, disintegrate, that thing become non-existing. If yesterday is non-exist, right? Today shaped by yesterday. The past of the yesterday is not exist. Today cannot be happen. It's not possible. So you say in the morning when you're hungry, so that means you haven't eaten well or not enough yesterday. So morning is very hungry, right? So morning not hungry is because of the yesterday you have eat well or enough, eat enough or big enough, big dinner, right? So if that past or yesterday is not exist, how can you be hungry when today hungry and not hungry? So the Prasangika school, everything is a dependent, relatively making things existing. So there's nothing, one thing you can hold on and say, this exists by itself. No, there's nothing. So partita samutapat, right? Partita samutapat, dependent originations. Yeah, okay. This is for the Chanju Simja Rinpoche, Majebana, Kishichi, Keba Nyamba, Mebanya, Kone Kondo, Peboch, Tonye Tawa Rinpoche, Majebana, Kishi, Keba Nyamba, Mebanya, Kone Kondo, Peboch, Pama Simja Tamde, Dedan Dejus, Ngendro Tamje Dado Tonga, Chanju Simba, Kanda Sushi, Tadakunji, Molum Dujurus, Karera Vegovish, and Lazo Pendan, the woman, Juve, Jerez, what in the Jazo Yeshabe, Sede Badu, Tenjuji.
May the precious body mind not yet on horizon grow. May the bone have no decline but increase forevermore. May the precious mind realize the emptiness not yet on horizon grow. May the bone have no decline but increase forevermore. Due to all these merits, may all father and mother sentients have all the happiness, and may all lower realms be empty forever. Wherever there are bodhisattvas, may all their prayers be accomplished immediately.
in
in the sacred land surrounded by snow light.
You
You are the source of all benefit and happiness.
all
All
power,
powerful,
genius,
infinity,
infinity,
remain
remain.
in this world until samsara ends.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Julila.